Hey there, gang. Your host, Zach Rutledge, here for another exhilarating edition of Doing Indy. And I'm in the theater, as you can see behind me here, but not just any theater. I'm in the Indiana Repertory Theater, and they're getting ready for the grand opening, the world premiere of a new play called Interpreting William by the Playwright in Residence, James Still. And the reason this episode is so special is that we're going to have the privilege and honor of sitting down with James to have a great conversation. And we wanted to bring it to you on this week of Doing Indy. Well, as I said, gang, here we are with the Playwright in Residence, James Still. Took the red eye to be here with us. That's how awesome this guy is. So, James, thank you again for coming. I really, really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
You are the Playwright in Residence for the IRT, but what exactly does being the Playwright in Residence for the IRT mean?
Well, we've defined it in our own way. I mean, the IRT had never had a playwright in residence in its 30 plus years of history. I have never been a playwright in residence, so in that way, we could make it up. I see every show. I read plays for Janet in terms of helping suggest plays for the season. So it's another point of view.
Take me through that process of coming up with this inspiration and getting it on paper and then getting it out on stage.
Well, the first thing is I never know when it's going to happen. So I'm always in this kind of perpetual open state, if you will. Many things have to happen between that and opening night of a play. Clearly, I can't just take something even that I hear or see and really turn that into a play. So it has to go through a process in me because A, I'm still figuring it out myself after all these years, but B, every play is different. So the way that I would get to Interpreting William, for example, is completely different from the way I would get to Iron Kisses, a play that we did last year. So I have to start over every time. I can't assume that I know how to do this just because I've done it before. And that, I have to say, is nerve-wracking.
Compare and contrast the different repertory theaters across the country that you've opened plays at.
Well, every theater that I work in has a different vibe, there's no question, and part of that is the community it's based. Part of it is where in the community. The IRT, I think, is partly defined by the fact that we're downtown. For one thing, I feel like, I kind of have a handshake with the audience, which I don't have at most other theaters. I don't have that relationship. I like to think of the work that I'm doing at the IRT as a conversation that I'm having with the audience, with the community. I'd like to keep people guessing and keep them surprised. So Interpreting William is one more in this big experiment, if you will, that is going on between myself and the IRT and the audiences that come to the IRT.
Interpreting William runs through the 31st of May, and you can get your tickets at the box office or at irtlive.com. Well, that's all we have time for on this episode of Doing Indy. I want to thank the good folks at the IRT and especially James Still for letting us come in here and sit down with him to have a wonderful conversation. So for Doing Indy, I'm your host, Zach Rutledge, and we'll see you next time.